Welcome to AI for UX. This is the space for UX researchers and product leaders to stay current with AI innovations. And I'm John Whalen, the founder of Brilliant Experience. And I personally have struggled with keeping up with AI tools for UX researchers and for product folks, and I'm guessing I'm not alone. And that's why I started this series. And me in particular, I'm a psychology-driven product innovation group that I work with. And here in each installment of our AI for UX, we speak to a founder of one of the latest AI enhanced tools to do a deep dive into what the tool does and how it might benefit you, how it kind of all got started, what was the inspiration for the tool, and where these folks who have really thought about this deeply are thinking that their product and the field is headed. And obviously, these are much more sophisticated than simply products. But I wanted to share with you one of these things today. And just a quick note here before I get started. These videos are not anything like product endorsements, and we at Brilliant always pay full price for any technologies we use, and neither party is getting paid. So this is simply to learn about new technologies together. With that said, let's get started. Welcome, Valerie. Valerie's the co-founder of QoQo.ai, and it's a AI for UX design, sort of a companion that helps you get a broad and organized picture at the early stages of the design process. So thank you very much for agreeing to be here and do this interview and talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Sorry, thank you for having me. It's great to be
here. It's my pleasure, and I'm delighted that we got the opportunity. Let's dive in right away to QoQo.ai. So, who would you say is the audience for your product right now?
Yeah, so QoQo.ai is quite a broad UX tool. It's used by product designers who will do the UX part of the design work, but also for some UX researchers who want to go a bit faster in their work and have a head start. Product managers, product owners may use it as well. And we've noticed a few industry designers who are interested in how the future products could be used and what could be the opportunities. So it's quite broad. We see the interest from marketing teams. It's not really addressing the specific needs and work with marketing teams, but they also have some similar questions about, the personas. Who am I creating for? What are they interested? What are the so it's quite a broad set of people we see using it, but the core of our users are the product designers who do the whole workflow.
Nice. And actually, we haven't really talked about what QoQo is. So what is sort of the pain point it addresses? Maybe you can tell us how it's related to Miro.
Yeah. So QoQo is basically a companion for anything in the UX workflow. It relieves the blank page syndrome. So it helps to get a head start, be creative, have different ideas. So, make sure that if you're working alone, for example, that happens, fortunately, that you're not actually fully alone. You have someone to talk with, to get some ideas from, to exchange with. It's also very helpful to reduce the time and budget for UX research preparation in particular. The desk research early on is quite time consuming, can be quite painful. So it really helps get faster and also increase the perspectives that you may address. So it helps understand a little bit better if you have an audience you're not familiar with. For B2B designers and UX researchers, it's very helpful if you're changing context. So, one day you're working maybe in healthcare, another day you're working in finance and so on. How do you know what are all the problems, all the challenges, the context of these people is very, very hard to know. And you have to know that you have to be smart before you go into interviewing them. And that's actually a very big challenge. I mean, I'm a UX designer. I've done UX research myself, and the other co-founders have as well. That's really, we think, a big value for UX research is really to have this head start So it's faster. It's also more variety into the ideas and the topics to cover. So in that way, it alleviates bias, the bias of the people, actually. Every designer, every researcher has bias. We tend to come from a few fields, design, psychology, mostly, which means we're not necessarily very strong in other areas, maybe finance, maybe politics, who knows. So everyone has their own bias. By working together with AI, with conversations and specific tools, it's much easier to have diversity in your initial knowledge, because you can ask open questions. You don't have to be specific in your search like you are in Google search. So it really changes the way you search for information, you explore information, and it helps have broader knowledge. So that's a very big value, obviously, for UX research.
Well, it certainly sounds broad and really impressive. And so I think for our viewers, we really need to just show them what we mean. So maybe you could just set us up with you mentioned, early ideation kind of work. And maybe you can just set us up with a scenario, and I'm happy to help and sort of share your screen. And maybe you can show us a little bit about how this might work for someone.
Yeah, I can illustrate that, so you can show my screen.
Okay.
So the example I took is one for a brilliant website. So I'm in Figma, by the way. The QoQo is used both in Figma or FigJam. So it's open to both designers and non-designers who want to use FigJam. FigJam is a whiteboard, like a bit like Miro, for those who are not familiar with. And QoQo works as a plugin. So that's why I'm going to open the plugins. I saved it in my plugins, but otherwise you can search in Manage Plugins. The first time you use QoQo, you do have to create an account, but I have obviously my account. So QoQo is going to be here. It's made of many different tools. So the example I took here is a project which was about uncovering the unmet needs of scientific innovators. So that's from your website, John.
Yes.
And it was for a scientific association in the USA. Obviously, I didn't have much information because we didn't, I didn't go to ask you for more on that. But based on this, I will illustrate. So this scenario is quite typical because it's really having a broad scope view of what are opportunities that maybe we or our client is not addressing. So I did first a chat, because QoQo has a chat option, and we have a document chat, so you can upload a document. For example, if you have a brief, like a meeting brief, and you have notes taken from that, you can upload those notes, and then you can ask it questions. So my document was very short. I uploaded this text from your website, and I asked, what is this project about? And then I can correct it. So it's a chat. It's a chat with an AI. You can totally correct if it's going wrong. What is the definition of an industry scientist? Because obviously, when you're starting a project, it's important to start with a clean base and understand what we're talking about. And then what's getting interesting here is that I asked it, what are different groups of industry scientists that I could look at? And it identified several kind of user groups: research scientists, product development scientists, and so on. So this is kind of giving a first possibility of the different types of user groups I could profile and identify for user interviews, or to do more desk research if that's what I'm going to do. QoQo is, it's easy to go from here, from QoQo, the interface here, into the FigJam. So I can create post-its. And that's what I did here. So I created those post-its, which are the different user groups. And then what I did is, what many of our users do, is to create a proto-persona. I know it seems early, but the good thing with doing a proto-persona early on, and that's why it's called a proto-persona, is that it gives a head start as to what are the challenges, what are the problems that these people are likely to encounter. And a persona looks like this here in Figma when it's generated, but I'm going to show one live. So we have many different tools, but this is just one scenario with one example.
Yeah.
It's asking for a description, which is what I got from my little chat with the document early on. So I'm doing the senior product development scientist example. And I have a scenario which is being a large scientific association in USA and being interested in specific scientific information needs. All right, and then I can generate the persona based on this. So it's looking at all the information it got from all the training, very heavy training, and the way we've engineered the QoQo AI layer on top of the large language model to use best UX design practice to avoid going crazy with hallucination. So we've tried to make it quite safe in a way that if it doesn't know, it will just repeat the same thing over and over again. Not in a way that it's repeated, but it doesn't know, it doesn't know. So it's not a big challenge here. But what it's doing is that we've structured it in a very clear way that's useful for designers. So first it generates here, and then it generates the version in Figma. So it identifies or it suggests user goals. For example, staying up to date with latest scientific research and industry trends, improving existing products, publishing research findings in reputable scientific journals. So it's giving a broad view, securing patents for novel inventions. So it's really giving a very broad overview of what this person's goals are. And then it does the same with the needs, collaboration platforms, network opportunities with industry experts. So it's, again, giving you a broad overview, and also with motivations, frustrations, and tasks and opportunities.
Oh, sorry, Valerie. I'll bring it right back in just a sec. I'm just dying to ask a question because it's really interesting. So,
Yes.
so this is something that I would use. So before I meet with I guess I'm trying to understand the scenario. So it sounds like it's ideally suited to, I'm about to maybe do some user interviews or other things, and this helps me think about what I might encounter or what it might be like. Is that the idea? Always
Yes,
correct me if I'm
exactly.
wrong.
Yes, that's what we use the word proto persona. We had to invent a word here. So see, it's generated this one here, but the one up where I was here. I was on this one. So yes, it's really to give you hints of topics to explore with your users, but I think also to help identify the questions or the criteria for recruiting users, because you might already find, okay, that's patents. That's an interesting point. I want to make sure I have some of the users I'll talk to who have had experience filing patents. That could be one criteria for recruiting. So it's also helping with it to prepare questions to be aware. Just because UX research is not just ask a question and here comes the answer. It's a discussion. So you have to be, as a researcher, knowledgeable, so you can have that conversation and be quite smart during that conversation to understand what's coming back from the person and to dive deeper into areas which are maybe not very clear or that you don't understand, or you think, okay, there's something that I need to explore further because I think there's an opportunity. So having this first round is helping, on those preparation for user interviews and during the user interviews.
And I also wanted to ask you, so I do a lot of UX research, so it all sounds like candy to me. For folks that don't typically do research, is this something that would be for them as well, or how are you positioning this right now?
Yes, so there are two cases, obviously, in those that don't do user research. Either they rely on someone else to do user research, in which case they can work together here. And that's a great thing about having it in Figma and FigJam, is that you can use it as a workshop. So you can do mini workshops based on the outputs of QoQo to discuss, okay, we think there might be some opportunities. We need to go and check them. But there are things that we found here applying for research grants, for example. Is that something we want to explore? Is that something that is relevant to our business goals, maybe? So it's a very helpful discussion with the people who do UX research. So that's one level. The other possibility of people not doing UX research is that there's nobody actually doing UX research because there's no time and no budget. And obviously, we all know that happens, and it happens a lot. And it happened before AI existed. It will happen after AI exists. That's not going to change. That's the way life is. Obviously, if you're going to invest a lot of money on a project, it's better to do UX research. And I always think we should always talk to users, have them in the loop. But I know that's not always the case. So for those people, we have some of those cases amongst our users at QoQo, and they find this very helpful because it gives them something that's much better than what they had before, which was barely anything really. So they have a first level that at least gives them ideas that they can then maybe do some prototype and do some testing, because that's often where companies spend more time with user interactions, is with testing ideas rather than early on user research. So it helps speed up the first steps and get some broader ideas, get some better knowledge. This is based also on knowledge from the different industries. It helps them, if they're alone, to feel a bit less lonely because there's a possibility to discuss. It's even possible to discuss with a persona, by the way. So I can also have a discussion with that person. I can chat with the persona and ask it extra questions. So I can ask, this one was named Emily. I can ask something about, maybe some opportunity that's not clear or something I want to dive deeper. So yeah, it works for both those cases.
Yeah, Valerie, I wanted to ask you just a specific question, which was, when I first saw the tool, I was like kind of amazed at the range of things, everything from personas to briefs to summarizing data. Are there any of these that you feel kind of are your sweet spot, or that are I don't know if sort of some of these are a work in progress and some are further along, or how are you feeling about the strength of the range of things that this offers?
Yeah, well, the personas are very strong. So that's actually where we started. And that's amongst our most used tools in the collection here. We're trying to cover quite a broad set of activities within the UX design workflow. So UX research, but also, we organized in different sections here: ideate, discover, define, design. Persona and journey mapping are very valuable because they're very time-consuming activities. The how might we, I was impressed. So, if you take, for example, I'll show you in background here. I took an example of an opportunity applying for research grants, and I did the how might we exercise. So just, how might we help scientific innovators successfully apply for research grants and so on. And it gave me 10 ideas of things that we can do. And they were very relevant. I'm just taking one randomly. Provide clear and concise instructions on how to prepare, submit a research grant application, for example. It was so relevant. I was like, well, that's a very good example. And this is quite recent, the how might we tool. It looks like this. So you just set the challenge and the language. And that's what it gives you, those post-its. So I think it's a very strong one that's growing. Chat is very important, chat and document chat, because there are some things that you wonder that you have to think. It's really about giving you this possibility to think further than what you know, and having this exchange through conversation is very valuable. And again, you can do that in the persona as well. Yeah, and the information architecture is a very good way to have a head start. And all the persona, journey mapping, information architecture, they provide an output in Figma and FigJam, which you can then edit. So once you've done your user research, you can go back to that proto persona that was created and modify it. you can edit the little post-its, and there's obviously some post-its created for you to add the other insights you gather. You can modify any text. It's all pre-formatted, and the same, I can show you a journey map. This is quite time-consuming to create, so just having this template, having some first ideas, being able to modify them once you've done your user research, that's helping gain so much time. You go from 10 days of preparation to a half day. It's a very very efficient way of working, and you continue using the same elements through your workflow afterwards.
It's very cool. And I was actually, one of my questions was how might my work sort of change as a result, and I think you've very eloquently answered that. So that's awesome. I did actually want to take a step back and say, we went from not having this tool to having it thanks to you and your team. What inspired you to create this product for this field?
Yeah, so we were a group of friends and colleagues who a bit like you, we were thinking, okay, there's a lot happening or going to happen with AI. We need to understand it. We need to be able to use it in our profession as freelance UX and UI designers and product managers. So we decided to give it a try, just first with ChatGPT. That was back in late 2022. And we tried it, just with some examples, and we thought, okay, there's potential there to give, good information for personas. That's, where we started, and also good ideas for user research questionnaires. The discussion guides, suggestions were really good. I remember trying one for gender-specific questions and diversity and inclusion in Saudi Arabia. So obviously we tried to push it to some quite a complex example where culture and the way of asking questions and even the legal implications were quite strict compared to maybe what we would expect in US or in most of Europe. And it did very well. So we thought, okay, it has been trained in a way that is very useful for designers. So let's go further and try to create a little tool where we can we decided to do a Figma plugin, because that was easy to do to start with, because we do not have to create all the elements of the post-its and all the things. So that's how we started with creating a plugin. Mostly for us, it was free. It was just to try to learn and then to improve the way we've set up the prompts. And we started to have quite a lot of traction quite quickly. So that was a good surprise. We also did some user interviews to understand what do people think about it. The people were excited and already saying, okay, please continue, don't stop. Right. We want this to continue. I can't do without QoQo anymore already. I really need something like this. It's great. So that's how we decided to take it to being a real product, which now can be purchased at a reasonable price for product designers, UX researchers, anybody working in Figma or FigJam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, I guess that speaks to the direction you might be headed. So, I guess I really am interested in sort of two things. One is, how do you see your product evolving over the next? And my question I wrote was the next few years, but I should really say the next few months. But things seem to happen so fast. But how do you see your product evolving, and how do you think that'll change how we do our work in sort of innovation broadly over the next little while?
Yeah. So in terms of evolution, as you say, things are moving fast. We're trying to cover a broad part of the workflow, so we want to make sure that we do that better and better, and that we cover more of the UX workflow, both on UX research and design. So that's one thing that we're looking at, and we continue. That's what we've been doing from the beginning, but we'll continue doing this way. We are very much listening to our users, because we are all designers as well, and that's how we work. So we use a lot of our user feedback and requests to make our decisions. we also are interested in looking at how teams can work together with AI, and not just individual people, individual users. We already have teams, but they all have their own space and so on. So those are the areas that we're looking at. In terms of the space, I think that there are some very good generative AI tools that are generic. So, the ChatGPT and DALL-E and all those things, they're generic. They can be used by many kinds of people of different professions. But what's going to happen is, I think anyway, and we start to see it, is distilling the AI into other specific tools for specific user groups, for specific professions. And that's, obviously QoQo is an example of that. We are targeting and looking really at the use case of UX people in a broad sense. We want to make sure that the workflow, the ways of working, the needs of those people are included in the development of the product. We're not, we don't have our own large language model we're training. This is obviously way beyond our means, because it costs hundreds and billions of dollars. We are really into making it most fitted for a workflow and to value a specific set of users. And I expect there will be more tools like us doing this more and more. There will also be the incumbents integrating AI, maybe not at the same speed as we can do, because obviously there's all the historic elements that they already have. And what with UX research, I'm not sure, but if we look at UX design in more broadly, and probably that applies to everyone, the way of working is not so much built from zero, from blank sheet of paper to something. It's more about having some suggestions, picking the best suggestions, modifying them with other data, adding more data, analyzing that, and going into loops, iterative loops of reviewing and working more like as art directors, maybe, curators of information and knowledge and data. I think that's probably going to be an impact on how we all work. We're not necessarily going to create post-its from scratch, but editing, reviewing, selecting, discarding, and so on. So it's probably a different way of working.
Really interesting. And well, actually, and for folks who haven't, I actually found, I don't remember exactly how I found QoQo.ai, but when I did, I was like, wow. And that's why I really wanted to talk to you. And so first of all, thank you for finding a way to create this tool and benefiting all of us. And secondly, for having a chat with me. If people wanted to try this and get started, maybe could you take a moment to just show us if they didn't have the plugin and they were in Figma or FigJam, how that works?
Yes, I cannot show how to create an account because I already have one associated with my account. But let me show the UI. Oops, sorry, I have to zoom out. Try to get rid of all the interface. So here in Figma, FigJam has, I think it's in plugins here in FigJam, if I remember right, but both work in Figma. There's this little icon, resources, with plugins. So maybe you end up on components by default, but you can go to plugins. Then there's a search bar. You can search QoQo, and you find QoQo here. The first time you click here, this window will ask you to create an account. You can use Google authentication or just email and password. And then you have, I think it's a one-day trial for free. And then you get through to this view here, which has information as to how to view our videos, the kind of tutorial videos for different tools. You can contact us to give some feedback. We would like that. Or even if you're a fan, we want to continue with us connecting on Slack, because we also have our community on Slack. That's part of where we ask for input from our users. And then the different tools, elements of QoQo are here on the left. So that's, you click on one. For example, here, this is the chat, and you can ask anything. The persona that I was showing earlier is down here. And every time you just set your text, It's you can copy paste to use the same thing again, and scenario. Depending on the tool, it will be slightly different inputs. And then there's the button to generate. We also have histories. You can go back and start to modify things. Yeah, there's quite a lot of things actually. Too much to show in a short demo.
It is. But I encourage people to give it a try. It's really interesting. And well, Valerie, thank you so much for being such a good sport and doing this with me. And no, I encourage you to keep going and helping all of us people in product and research, helping us out. So well, here, let me kind of close this up. So thank you again for sharing QoQo.ai, and I do encourage people to give it a try. And that's really all I want to do for today. So thank you all for tuning in and keeping up with the latest for AI and UX research. And please subscribe if you enjoyed this, and let us know in the comments what other tools you'd like us to feature next. And we are wishing you brilliant insights with AI. So thank you so much.